Hey, world. So I am remote locationing this from a different place because, as we know, my house is not this clean, and that's okay. So today on Transparency Transforms, we have John Montgomery, who's a friend and a special guest.
Hey
Obviously,
guys.
Kelly, who the whole world knows,
Welcome,
and
John.
Mandy, if she's able to show,
Thanks.
she'll be here. Um, so we want to talk about releasing resentments today. Resentments are really funny. What I've learned about myself and resentments is, well, I'm fidgety. Oof, always fidgety. What I've learned about resentments in myself is that I feel it's so angled. Wow. Feel like a cone head. Like wee. Okay, so anyway, look, typical Mike. Um, what I've learned about resentments is it starts with resenting ourselves, and then we reflect it outward, like everything else, right? Like love, hate, fear. I mean, all of it, right? All of it stems from what we feel towards ourselves, and that's how we show up to the world. Resentments are tough, right? Like, I've created crazy resentments because I am the type of person that goes all in, that gives more than somebody asks, that wants to be there for somebody to the extreme. And because at times I become self sacrificing, it creates resentments, right? And the reality is what I've learned over the most recent chunk of time is these resentments are towards myself, right? This is me being angry at myself for putting myself in that position, and then I'm blaming others for that. Um, so as I've stepped into this next phase of my journey, it's about being accountable to myself and understanding that when I'm in, like my post yesterday, right? When I feel like I'm in a toxic situation, I need to look at myself and understand how I'm being toxic, right? Like there is no toxic situation if I'm not toxic. So
Yes.
where am I being toxic? Where am I being the contributor? Where am I playing this dynamic out? And for me, it's really a lot of self awareness, almost to an uncomfortable level at times. But it's really truly helped me to take that next step of becoming the biggest observer in my own life, right? And truly being able to step back from the emotions, step back from the feelings, step back from things are happening to me, and start understanding what role I'm playing and why they're happening to me and how I'm enabling them, allowing them, or even attracting them to happen to me based on what I'm putting into myself.
Mhm.
Kelly.
Yeah, I love your point about just recognizing your part in it. I think that that's key in when resentment um, takes hold of us. But I also think that recognizing what resentment is and what it does is so important. Like, so there's steps to this, right? So I may have resentment towards someone for the way they treated me, or something they did or something that I went through. And resentment really is, if we break it down, is really unforgiveness. And so when I'm holding on to resentment towards someone, what is that serving me, right? And so typically when we hold resentment or unforgiveness in someone, it feels like a sense of protection, right? It feels like I'm holding on to my power. I'm protecting myself by holding on to this resentment towards something, right? When in reality, when we hold on to resentment, we're giving that person or that situation power over us, right? In reality, what we're really doing is allowing them to hold some negative energy within us, whether or not they realize it, right? We're then holding this negativity within us because of something that happened. And one thing I love about forgiveness, or understanding forgiveness, is it's not about saying, forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay, right? It's not saying like it's okay that you did this to me, right? Because a lot of times when we forgive somebody, we're like, it's okay. And I think that that's wrong. I think we need to be really intentional with our words. When we forgive someone, we're not saying it's okay that this happened. When we forgive someone or something, what we're saying is, I acknowledge that this happened, and I no longer want to hold on to negativity with it, right? It's the whole like you can forgive someone and not forget, right? I no longer want to hold on to that negative energy, whether it's forgiveness or unforgiveness or resentment or whatever it is. Like, just recognize, for me, it's really helpful to recognize what it is, to really pinpoint and look at it and say, I'm holding on to this resentment because I feel like somehow it protects me, right? I feel like somehow that's me saying this isn't okay, right? And forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. For me, being able to reframe that and let go, recognizing that I'm not telling you it's okay. I'm not saying that whatever happened is, not a big deal. I'm just saying I no longer want to hold on to that negativity, you know? I can think of like some really specific things, like some people, like friends who I really felt like did me wrong, or maybe an ex-boyfriend, who I really felt like did me wrong. And well, I did this meditation about forgiveness. And it was so interesting to me because I think when that word comes up, we automatically think of something, right? When we hear the word forgiveness and say, okay, think of someone or somewhere where you're not holding, where you're holding unforgiveness, or you're holding resentment. I mean, there's no secret there, right? Like, we know where we're holding that and who we're holding that towards. It's not something that's like I have to think about, you know? Like, I know who's in that box and why and what happened. But for me, it was really helpful through that meditation just to recognize, like I said, to recognize that me forgiving someone is actually letting go of the power that that event or that person holds over me. And it's just letting go of that negativity so that I can live more freely. I don't want to live with negativity and resentment in my body. Like, I know the impact that that has on my physical health and my well-being and my mental health. I can really recognize that when I hold that in my body, it impacts other areas of my life. I feel like I just went on a tangent, but
You did, but that's okay. That's the world we live in, right? Like, I do it too. Everybody does it. It's just the way it goes. And John, before we get to you, what I've learned recently, very, very recently, is I can forgive without forgetting.
yeah.
I can forgive without condoning. I can
Hmm.
forgive without judging. And I can also forgive in silence while not associating.
Yep.
And for me, it's not as much about the person or thing, situation that I'm forgiving. It's about removing myself so that I can work on forgiving myself, right? So that I can find that deeper meaning for self and really heal the way that I need to heal, the way that I'm meant to heal for me. And it's 99.9% of the time, it's not about anybody else.
Yeah.
It's always comes back to what we do to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's, judgment, resentment, fear, pain, blame, shame, even trust, right? You can't truly trust anyone if you don't trust yourself. And, it's all how we reflect it outward. So, when I look at these resentments and I look at resentments that I've had that I still probably have that I still carry forward, right? And there are some, and I'm really working really deeply on a lot of them, because a lot of them are previous triggers and everything else, right? Usually it's not the most recent event that's the trigger, it's usually something way from our past that's the trigger, right? And it's getting to that core root of any issues. For me, what I realized is it's okay to walk away. right? It's okay to pull back, and work on myself. And to me, that's honoring and forgiving myself on a deeper level than I ever had before.
Yeah.
It is giving myself that time and space and energy to be able to heal.
Yeah.
John,
Well,
oh, you want to follow that up real quick, Kelly, and then we'll hand it to John?
I just love that what you said about like forgiveness. It's not about the other person and and letting go of resentment. It's about you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and even like your comment about like it could be in silence. Like forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to the person and say, I forgive you. You know, it's an internal thing.
It is, and honestly, that's why I kind of rigged this show, and we have John on here who I want him to share a little bit of his story, and I want him to tell the world a little bit of get it off his chest, what he's been holding against himself, right? It's, you know, by sharing our voice, we empower others to share their voice.
Yep.
And by sharing stories, it empowers others to share stories. So you're up, John. Just roll with
Uh,
it.
Thank you. I first of all, I appreciate the opportunity. Um, I'll get into my story in a second, but I just wanted to add in reference to forgiveness, resentment, they sort of go hand in hand. You got to forgive in order to move forward. If you have any type of resentment towards an individual, a company, or anybody like that, forgiveness is. I raised all my children that you don't have to say it's okay when someone hurts you and apologizes. Just be
Yeah.
quiet,
Yeah.
and you don't have to say okay, it's all right, because first of all, it's not all right.
Yeah.
So why should you start out with a lie?
Yeah.
But you don't have to say anything. I told my kids, you don't have to say anything. Just listen.
Yeah.
And they'll probably, when they leave, say, man, I was uncomfortable because I said this and they didn't say it's all right. So
Yep.
maybe they'll think. So I want to thank Michael. I've been talking to Michael, and my story of resentment, I sort of picked out this story because letting go, which also goes hand in hand with resentment and forgiveness, letting go is a key. And I've been on this journey of letting go for a long time. My two favorite authors are Michael Singer and David Hawkins, who are really magnificent when it comes to teaching you how to let go. So if I'm a little nervous, this is the first time I've been on something like this, and it's definitely the first time that I've told the public something that is, I feel, is personal. Uh, but in order to let go, in order to stop sabotaging my life by hurting my loved ones, and the way I hurt my loved ones is I'm keeping this inside and I'm blaming myself,
Mm-hmm.
and and then I'm blaming them. So it's time to let go. It's time to go forward and have the best possible life that John Montgomery can possibly have. So uh, I'm going to start with a very personal thing that happened to me. My wife Nancy died of leukemia in 2010. That was a 2-year battle with leukemia that ended with her weighing about 78 pounds, and it was painful, very painful. So I'm going to start at that point, which was probably the lowest point in my life. Uh, and you look back and you have to forgive yourself with so many things. I look back and say, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. But overall, I think I did a great job. But um, I had a business. I've had my own business ever since I was 27 years old, and it's in the medical field. And I had a business during the time that Nancy was fighting for her life. And I fired this employee in Florida, and I probably could have fired him better. And one thing I believe in is not blaming others for things that happen to you. Uh, Take accountability for your actions.
Yeah.
And my accountability on this action is I probably could have been more compassionate in the way I fired him, because he started a business behind my back, and I got called by a doctor and I didn't know who it was. And it's a long story, but I could have done a better job. He had a family, he had children, he had a wife, and I was so hung up on probably what I was going through in my own personal life. And I let him go. I didn't care that if he had dinner the next day, and I was wrong. So when I let him go, I used to do neurological testing, and I was in doctors' offices, and I bring technicians in and doctors in and this and that. He said to me at that specific moment, I have several friends in the FBI, and I'm going to bring you down. Well, I had legal opinion letters in every state, and everything I was doing was supported by legal opinion letters. So I didn't think anything. I said, fine, yeah, you do that. So to extend, now I'm going to jump to, that was 2010, 2013. My wife now, a lot of you might know her, Nancy Gentle Boudry is my wife now. I met Nancy in 2011. I went to her for energy work and grief and counseling. And she went through a divorce in 2012. And we never really looked at each other like, hey, why don't we go out, or anything like that. But we started dating in 2013. I probably wasn't ready. I think Nancy probably wasn't ready, but we did anyway. And we went on a cruise. It was a spiritual cruise to the South Pacific. And if you guys can imagine this, I had my youngest daughter at home. She was 15 at the time, and or 16, around there. And I get a call. I'm in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a cruise ship, and my home was raided by the FBI.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm in the middle of the Pacific. I can barely communicate. I have to apologize to Nancy because it ruined the trip. But and I was worried about my daughter because they're not the nicest people in the world when they come to your residence. But I was raided by the FBI in 2013. Um, Now, from 2013 to 2018, they started this investigation. And it did start with that person that I will go back to, that I fired in Florida in 2010. So basically, my knowledge of this, they have 5 years. So now it's 2018, and they have to make a decision that we want to indict this person. What do we want to do? And what I've learned from this is, one, it doesn't matter if you did it or not. It really doesn't matter, because the FBI, it doesn't matter to them, because what they did, they formed a case on a lie. So they're prosecuting a lie. As a matter of fact, I was attracted to Michael Singer in his book, Surrender Experiment. I don't know if anyone's read that, but I would recommend it highly if you're looking at ways to let go. The Surrender Experiment, they did the same thing to Michael Singer. An employee uh, told a bunch of lies because he fired them. Maybe that's why I was attracted to that book. But what Michael Singer did that I didn't do is Michael Singer had the tools to let go, and for this not to affect his whole entire life, because he already surrendered his life to God. And he did a much better job, I have to say, than I did. But but they build a case on a lie, so it's very difficult to support that. Uh, Without going into a lot, I had a co-defendant, which was a neurologist. They threatened the neurologist. He wrote a statement to get, and I don't blame him. I actually respect him still to this day, even though he wrote a statement saying a bunch of lies to get off of getting in trouble himself. Well, it got me in trouble, and I had to change my plea from not guilty to guilty. And I went to prison for 13 months. So I got out of prison. I did a lot of great stuff in there. It was a camp. I got people together. I don't know if anyone read the I Am series of books by Saint Germain, but I would recommend it. It's a very difficult reading. I started a reading group on the I Am series in prison, and there's 20 books, and we went through 15 of them, and they're intense books about going within to the center of your heart where God resides, and there's all the answers. The answers are inside your heart, not out here, because out here doesn't have any answers. And I got out in July of 2020. And believe it or not, the first person that I was introduced to LinkedIn by my wife, because she has a coaching business. And I was introduced to LinkedIn, and the first person that pops up is Michael Paterano throwing his life out on live video, crying.
Yep.
I've never seen a man do that.
Yep.
And I thank him to this day for letting me, and I thank God, because that's the first person I saw. And I was attracted to that man and his sincerity and his just plain and simple rawness was just amazing. And me as a man, I thought, wow. And Nancy, my wife Nancy, and Mike have met. And Mike, of course, it connects everybody together. He's like the connector of all connectors. I still to this day don't know how you make any money because you're connecting everybody, but you do. And I want you to make as much as possible because you're an amazing man. And so I meet Mike. I meet him in person. He went through a traumatic situation, and I'm so happy he's on the other side of that. And you're doing well, Mike. I got to commend you. And
thank you, John.
And here I am on video telling a story that really, to be honest with you, and anyone that's been in this situation, is you want to hide. You want to hide somewhere, but you can't hide. Michael has told me that I can't hide. I am a good man. I can't hide. I don't want to hide. I want to live another 30 years and make a difference because I know I will.
Yeah.
So that's my story. Here I am. I wouldn't say I'm better. Yeah, I can say I'm better, but I have a long way to go. But part of my journey is learning how to let go. I've already forgiven. I need to learn how to let go and go forward and be the best version of myself I can possibly be, because that's all I can ever do is bring out to the world the best version of John Montgomery. And I would recommend some books if anyone is stuck, if anyone is wondering, how do I go forward? Michael Singer's Surrender Experiment, amazing. Untethered Soul, amazing. David Hawkins, Letting Go, Michael referred me to that. It's awesome. The I Am series by Saint Germain, difficult reads, but gets to the point, and you will learn how to be one with source, let's
Yeah.
call it. The Four Agreements by Don Michael Ruiz, excellent. If you want to simplify all this, The Four Agreements, those are the books I'd recommend. And what Michael has helped me understand, I had internal core values or soul values my whole life. I raised all my children. Your word is all you have in your life. So make sure if you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Your word is everything. No one can take that away from you, your word. And I'm a big vibration guy. I've studied levels of consciousness. You can tell by my favorite authors. But
Yeah.
I am trying to put out to the world the highest vibration I can possibly put out, because the only way I can get back positive momentum is by putting out positive vibration to my conscious. So that's my story, Michael. Kelly, I appreciate you allowing me to come on here and talk and talk about my story. The thing I would say is I look back, I can actually, and most of you, prison. How can you get a positive thing from prison? I did. I met some good people there. And I do have positive experiences from an unpositive situation. And I think in life, because life throws you curveballs, that's what you have to do. You have to go back and look and pick out the positive things from every situation. That's my story. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you, John. Thank you for allowing yourself to free yourself, right? It's like Mandy always says, shame hides in secrets, and truth and transparency relieves the shame. It gets rid of the shame around anything. And it's the whole reason that we're doing this show, right? Is to hold this space for people that they can live in their transparency, and that we can inspire others to live in theirs. I want to go into a little bit more detail, right? And
All right.
and this is me poking the bear, so feel free to,
Yeah, not a problem.
swing back if you have to. Um, what what were the resentments doing to you? Carrying these resentments and blaming yourself and shaming yourself, and putting yourself into this corner that I went against everything I believe in, and how do I find myself if I don't believe in myself? What has it really done? What were the side effects of living that way?
Oh my goodness. Uh,
I
I
ask light questions, John, so we just
I,
got to roll with this.
I'll tell you the truth. I thank God that I was a very spiritual person, highly spiritual. I've been reading spiritual books since my wife died in 2010. I had some amazing experiences with her, with that whole ordeal. Uh, it affects everyone around you. You really don't think, just the attitude, and it really goes back to people that are depressed or are living in that lower consciousness of vibration. Everyone around you, you affect. You don't think you do, you don't think about it, but you do. You don't bring out the best version of anyone because they're so worried about you.
Yeah.
And I put them through 13 months. I mean, they went through a lot. First of all, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I still to this day can't even imagine what they went through with that. But and everybody went through that, and I that must have been terrible. Just the fear part of it. Uh, it's just, I think letting go will allow me to be happy and to look at the future as bright, to look at the future as I don't have to hide because I know who I am. Uh, I'm not whatever they thought I did, and it's. I mean, I'll go to my grave saying I didn't do anything, but it's not even about that. It's you got to let go. You got to let go. You got to go forward. You got to keep improving yourself, and that's why I deal with the vibrations. I listen to music with high vibrational hertz. I'm big and all that, and it's helped me uh, immensely. And I'm going to continue trying to improve myself to the level, not that everyone else, to the level that I'm happy with, because I'm the one that has to be happy. I'm the one that has to love myself. If I can't love myself, how can I express love to somebody else? So I'm. This is a journey. This is a journey. It started a long time ago, and for some reason, I had to go through what I went through. But it's not nearly over. Hopefully, I'm through some of the negative sides of the journey, and I can go into more of the positives. But it's a journey, and I'm ready for the journey, and I'm ready to continue the journey towards enlightenment, because isn't that what we all are going for, is enlightenment? I know that's what I want.
John, I think it's so interesting to hear you say, I mean, it just shows where you are. Anyone would want to defend themselves and say, until the day I die, I'm going to say I didn't do anything wrong. But for you to be able to say it doesn't matter, like that is huge for you to be able to say that. And I think that I'd love for you to go into that a little bit more about why it doesn't matter, because our instinct is always going to be to defend ourselves, right? And we, like other people's perception of us is, like important and all these things. So like, I want to know how you got to the point where you can say it doesn't matter.
Well, Michael helped me with that. It's ironic. When I was in prison, I met this. I actually didn't even like this guy. I didn't like his, but the one thing he did teach me, because you can get taught by even people that you really don't even like.
Right.
This one fella, I didn't really care for him that much, but one thing he did teach me, and I'm a big proponent of, I think anyone can teach us anything. He said to me one day, he goes, I told him something really intense, and he goes, give it to God and let it go. That's what he said. Give it to God and let it go. And he goes, John, you hold all these classes, you're teaching inmates how to raise their vibration, and you're teaching all this stuff. And I have a book club going on with the I Am series. You don't believe in God, because if you believed in a higher power, in source, you'd let it go. Wow. It's like you say you do, but then you won't let it go. And that stuck with me. And then I meet Michael, and he goes, just let it go. Because no one really cares anyway. Let it go. You have to care. You're the only one that has to care. Thank you, Elizabeth. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's funny how easy it is to say those words, right? Let it go.
Oh,
and the act of letting go is not that simple. And I believe Kelly and I have talked about this before, probably many times live. But letting go is just not easy, right? Because there's emotional attachments, there's mental attachments, there's physical attachments, there's spiritual attachments, there's attachments on every level. And, until we find a place within ourselves where we are our worth to ourselves is more than the story that we tell ourselves, nothing changes, and letting it go doesn't happen. Yes, I'm the kind of crazy that needs to physically let go to let go, right? Like like
Yeah.
letting go needs to be such a physical manifestation for me that I can't do it any other way. And
Yeah.
it's not always great. It's not always the right way to do things, but it's what works for me, right? And if I'm going to have shows like Transparency Transforms, if I'm going to be a part of a book like Kelly and I just were about radical self-love, if we're going to do things like that, and I'm going to do things like this in my life, and I'm going to work with people like John, and I'm going to inspire others, and I'm going to be there to share my stories to inspire them, and I have to live my truth and acknowledge who I am and accept it, right? For me to let go of things, I need to physically let go of them completely. Um, it's not easy for me any other way. I'm so spiritual that I don't even want to be human most of the time, right? So, when I always say this, I mean, I'm a great being, but boy, am I a crappy human. And I don't believe that I am. I mean, I do many amazing things as a human, but it's so challenging at times to let go of stuff.
Yeah.
My whole life was all about, how can I hide this? How can I keep this a secret? How can I not acknowledge this?
It's
For anyone
exhausting.
who's never,
Yeah.
it is, and for anyone who's never done a live show, or for anyone who's never done a video and shared their secrets, what John just did is so impressive.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because it is not comfortable. There are people that do shows every day of the week. There are people that can, be present, be seen, and never share a truth or never have the courage to own something. And what he just did and the strength that he just showed and the fact that he knows he's worth it is a game changer in his life, right? Like he just took his power back from the story that's been told around him
Mhm.
because he owned his story.
Yeah, and
Well,
just by you don't let it
it's
survive.
also, you know, it's hard. And Michael, I mean, I mentioned last July when I watched you. Uh, it's hard, but it's also, man, I feel good. I really
Good.
feel good. It's very, it's like a weight's off me. Now
Yeah.
the big thing though is where do I go from here? You know, so when I continue this journey, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really exciting. This will be step one of many steps.
I love it.
Thank you, Ken.
It's when you give yourself permission, right? You move forward, right? Like it's all about allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission. Society didn't raise us, generational trauma didn't raise us, to be willing to be this vulnerable, this honest, right? To put your stuff out there, right, for the world to see, to
Yeah.
own your story. Um, but what's beautiful about where the world is today, for all the crappy things going on in this planet, when somebody is strong enough and willing to step out and do these things, the amount of support, love, acceptance, understanding, empathy for people that do this, um, I can't even describe it because I've been doing this now for I guess a year and a half, right? Like just sharing my story with the world and just putting my crap out there. And as I've evolved and grown and learned, and everything else that's involved with this, the amount of support and love and everything that comes along with it is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm realizing today is what's really coming full circle for me. While I love it, appreciate it, respect it, and give it back, I don't need it to know my worth anymore.
Mm.
That's big.
And my worth is being built on my shoulders. And my value is being determined by how I treat myself.
Right.
Because that's what we allow. How we treat ourselves is how we allow others to treat us.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the only ones that can control that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kelly, thanks for bringing up forgiveness, because it's such a big component of really
Yeah.
everything. I mean, really, it's. I mean, that, like this person I mentioned that I fired, I've forgiven him. I hope nothing but the best for him.
Yeah.
And it's so important to forgive. I mean, uh, when you brought that up, I was so happy you brought that up, because I wouldn't have even thought of forgiveness, but it goes hand in hand with
Yeah.
resentment, because if you're resenting somebody, you have to forgive them. You can't do one or the other.
Yeah.
You have to do both.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, I appreciated that.
Yeah. Your story is so powerful, John. Like, I'm so grateful that you chose to share it with us. And I want to encourage you to, I mean, I would read that book all day, every day, you know? Like, I just want to encourage you to continue sharing that, because,
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
the whole theme of this show, Transparency Transforms, is for us, right? It's when I share my shame parts, when I'm transparent, it helps me heal. But the concept is that it helps others heal, you know? And with such a great, you have such a great mission on this earth to make an impact. The more that you share that story, the more impact you're going to have.
Well, you know, it almost goes back to I'm a big proponent of I have a big heart when it comes to the homeless, and I would go down to Philadelphia and I would sit and talk to the homeless, and they all have such a story. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is my story, part of my
Yeah.
story. But at one time, I wanted to do a book, the stories of the homeless, because the stories are amazing.
John, we need to talk. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to do a movie. So I'm a filmmaker, and I've always
Okay.
wanted to do a movie about the homeless and their stories and how.
Oh, you know, people think that they're just downtrodden, and that's true. But like
Right.
I told my daughter once, we left the zoo and I gave the homeless person $20, and she said, they're just going to go buy booze with it. I said, honey, I probably would go buy booze with it,
Right.
you know, because
Yeah.
they might have just lost their family. They might have just lost everything. And they've given up on life, basically.
Yep.
But they have some amazing stories.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone, because I've always had a passion, and I used to go down and sit next to them, not just give them $20, but sit next to them and just let them know that I see that you're a human being,
Yes. Yes. That's
you know,
crucial. Yes.
because they're so I have a lot of yeah, I'm going to do a lot of great stuff. Once I get out of my own way, like Michael tells me,
Yeah.
uh, you know, I'm gonna do some amazing things. I just have to get out of my own way first,
You're doing it right
right,
now.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, well, we all have to, right? Like we all have to get out of our own way. And again, it's like letting it go. It's an easy statement, but not easy to do, right? And we need to understand what that means first, right? So that's part of that paradox of life is, you know, jump first, think first, whichever one you want to do first, but do something.
Right.
I do see a potential, you know, documentary with John being interviewer, and Kelly
Right.
being up here filming
Yeah.
Philadelphia homeless. Wow, that would put Kelly in Philadelphia for a bit.
He
Maybe we'll
was
have maybe we'll find her a place to stay. Um,
But
oh,
yeah, I definitely would be interested in
okay. Yeah, let's talk more
those.
about that. I love it.
Yes.
but I think everything happens for a reason, right? There is not a single thing in my life, good or bad, that I don't look at a lesson in now. And I'm not perfect. I'm not. Trust me, I get emotional. Trust me, we all know I cry quite a bit. We all know that, I can laugh and be an ass and be a jackass and, you know, be all these different things. But at my core and at my center, it's helping people find their truth that really matters to me,
Yeah.
and helping people to live in their truth. And by me living in mine, it's helping others to live in theirs. And that's the whole point of the show, is to empower and inspire others to be self-empowered and self-inspired.
Yes.
And
And
Kelly has a chapter in a book on self-love, just in case anybody was wondering.
So does Mike.
Yes, I do too, actually. Yeah, yeah, it's
Buy
it's
it on
interesting.
Amazon tomorrow.
what's your chapter on, Kelly? What's your chapter on?
I get really vulnerable about my journey with self-love and
Okay.
the challenges there and my past and where I am now. Um, it's been a road, right? It's been a long road, but I'm to the point now. I have a program, 21 Days to Return to Self-Love. That's a free program on my website that you sign up for, and every day you get a video, like 5 to 10 minutes of a practice that encourages you to love yourself. So
Fabulous.
yeah,
Please. I will definitely be checking that out.
yeah, it's
Definitely.
easy. They're just 5 to 10 minute little videos. Some are meditation, some are other practices, but it's been a good,
Good.
just from my experience, things I've learned over the years.
Right. Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's been quite the journey, and we all have our story, and we all deserve to be heard, and we all deserve to be listened to and appreciated and respected for the willingness to be that transparent and honest, right? Because again, it's not an easy way to live. It's just not. And it's not an easy way to surround yourself with. Um, because it doesn't work for everyone. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And I just refuse to allow my life to be controlled by shame anymore and be controlled by secrets and stuff that I can't share.
Yeah.
Because it's not true to who I am. And it directly goes against my values.
Yeah.
And who I am as an entity and as a person, as a being on all levels.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about just living in my truth.
Yep.
Well, it's sort of like
pretty,
this level of consciousness that I talk about. I think human beings have a natural tendency to always go lower. We have to try to raise ourselves to higher levels of positivity or
Mhm.
consciousness. I think it's natural for us to one day be at love or willingness or acceptance, and then easily to go down to pride, anger, and desire.
Yep.
It's just, but it's hard. But don't you agree that a lot of it is just self-awareness and keep asking yourself, where am I at? Keep knowing what level of, let's just say, positivity
Yeah.
I'm projecting to the world and to myself.
Yeah.
Because it's so natural to slip.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it. Slip down.
Yep. Yeah, it's awareness and then being intentional about raising your vibration, like you said.
Right. You got to really try all the
but I
time.
think there's a step. I think there's a step beyond that too, because and I lied to myself for years, right? So even if I was aware, I was still lying to myself. So
Right.
it starts with being honest with ourselves, right? And this radical honesty, this raw transparency of, yeah, I make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I do this. Yes, this is my pattern. Yes, this is what I've always done, right? And that honesty, and then layering self-awareness on top of it to really not live there anymore and not do, short-term gratification for long-term consequences, right?
Yes.
Like delayed gratification, and understand that there's a bigger picture at play here. And every single decision we make impacts our vibration, impacts where we are at personally, and then shatters or spider webs out from there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just because we don't want to hurt someone, just because we want to do right by others, doesn't mean that if we do something that brings a short-term gain or does something that isn't true to who we are, that there isn't a spider web of consequences that come with it down the line.
Yeah.
And it's okay to live there. It's okay to do that. But it's about being accountable. It's
Yep.
about being accountable to ourselves, holding ourselves to a higher standard, that when we are self-aware, yes, we might make mistakes. Yes, we own it. Yes, we fully own it. We fully become transparent with ourselves. And then we can start healing and moving forward.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you both for such a great conversation.
Thank you, Kelly.
Definitely.
So appreciative.
John, when you
So-
get a chance, can you introduce me to Kelly so I know who she is? I'm just trying to remember.
Oh, you're funny.
He has a good personality, doesn't he? Hey, I
Thank you,
want to
world.
thank both of you for making this very easy for me. Very, very appreciative of that, because I was nervous, but you made it to where I was able to be relaxed, and I'm very grateful and appreciative of that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome, John. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
your story. It deserves to be heard.
Thank you. No, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you all for watching. Thank Liz for the comments. Tune in next week. We'll be
And
here.
we'll let you know when we figure out a topic
Yeah.
or a new sacrificial lamb, either or.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, Kelly.